Hello, everyone. I'd be remiss if I don't mention in introducing the 30 under 30s there. Of the past 20 years that I've been in learning and development, 4 organizations have been members of the Learnovate Center. Thomson Reuters, State Street Global Advisors, Learning Pool, and Real-Time Recruitment. And I also have to add, I did 6 years at Enterprise Ireland building the business case for Learnovate, and I couldn't be more proud of what David and Nessa and the whole team have done. So with that, with the pride I have right now, I'm going to introduce amazing 30 under 30 award winners. We have Dr. Des and Tad, and I'm going to let them, Des Conroy and Tad Sodipe, I hope I said that right, sitting here, and we are going to get a vision into the future of learning and development, HR tech, AI, and all that through a nice conversation that we've had. The time building this up and preparing for this has been one of the most enjoyable times I've had in creating that. So I'm going to let you all introduce yourselves. Dr. Des, we'll start with you, and then Tad.
Yeah, thanks, Sharon. Hi, everybody. I'm Des Conroy. I'm head of capability building at Prova Health. My career so far has had a few interesting twists and turns. I started in medicine, working in the HSE and the NHS in England, and I then spent a little bit of time in health tech, and I was really lucky to get to pursue my first real passion, which was developing digital solutions for patients. And for the past 3 and a bit years, I've been working in life sciences consulting. At Prova Health, we help life sciences and healthcare organizations understand the diseases that they're tackling and how to bring new solutions into clinical practice, whether that's new drugs, new medical devices, or digital and AI solutions. And my job is all about using learning interventions to help those organizations bridge that gap from discovery and design to implementation and adoption. So great to be here, thanks.
Tad?
Hi guys, my name's Tadelayo. I'm an instructional designer, so that means I design and develop e-learning, and I make it fun and engaging and interactive as well as inclusive. I started off in an artistic graphic background, and then there wasn't very much jobs in graphic designing. So I went to work with kids. I really like working with kids. I ended up being a TA for kids with autism and learning difficulties. And then lockdown hit, and then they still had to pass their exams and grades. So I found engaging and fun ways to present the learning to them. And then someone was like, oh, that's a job. So I ended up stumbling into digital learning developing. And yeah, I'm now working for Suez. I'm not sure if anybody knows, but they manage a lot of waste in the UK, France, China, and they also dabble in renewable energy, and they work with government. So I design some of the learning for those employees. Yeah.
All right, pretty unbelievable, right? Here I am saying, oh God, you guys should be like leading the charge here, as you will be. I'm gonna ask a few questions, and we're gonna probably dive in. If anyone knows me, it'll be conversational. And then we're gonna get moments for you all to reflect on some of the insights that Des and Tad is sharing. So Des, we'll start with you. What skills from your clinical background have proven unexpectedly valuable in your current role? And I do want to add, it shocked me and surprised me that a doctor felt like he could, like, oh God, I don't know much about learning. I'm like, you save lives. So I'm really impressed that we're seeing the transfer of business, medical, and other skills coming into the industry of learning and development. But with that, what has worked best for you from your clinical background in learning?
Yeah. Well, it's a great question. I think lots of things have crossed over, to be honest. The big ones that come to mind are those big meta skills: communication, empathy, problem solving, So, in clinical practice, obviously, empathy is about listening to patients. You go into health tech, it's about understanding users who are also patients, but they might also be clinicians, understanding their needs, their clinical workflows, their day-to-day, so that you can design solutions that actually address them and that they want to engage with, So then I think the same applies in learning. At my company, like everyone in the room, I'm sure, we take a user-centered design approach to learning, engaging with people as early as possible and as much as possible to understand the needs. so that we can design interventions that that benefit them, address those needs, and that they want to engage with. So yeah, I think there's been quite a lot of crossover there, and then problem solving. Doctors process a load of information. You take a medical history, you do an examination, and you do tests. You look at test results. You take it all together. You form hypotheses. You test those hypotheses till you get to the best diagnosis, prescribe the best treatment. I think in business and in capability building, it's the same. You look at the data. You form hypotheses. You test them. You test solutions, and you adapt as you go.
I love that. And was there a personal stride in wanting to get into learning with the medical background that you had? Was there something personal that drove you to that?
Do you know what? If I'm being completely honest, like I didn't know a number of years ago I'd end up doing learning. My first passion, as I said, was designing and developing and testing those solutions for patients. But in my company, we're passionate about innovation in healthcare, and I have found learning to be one of the most powerful levers to deliver those new innovations to practice for in organizations.
That's amazing. And a call out. The biggest thing I learned from this is reaching out to the subject matter experts and almost seeing if we can get them into the industry, get them more involved. It's been impressive. Tad, why don't you share with us, what new skills are you cultivating to stay ahead of the curve, and how do you help others do that as well?
Personally, I struggle with large amounts of data and being structured. So I've taken upon myself to go into a data analytics course, and I think that kind of shows that you need to be more self-aware of your kind of pitfalls. So I would say to other people, like, find out what you're not good at, and then try to find a course or try to find a way to learn how to get better at that. Because as Brenda mentioned earlier, there's a skill gap coming, or there's a skill gap around. So the way to stay ahead of the curve is to kind of build on the skills that you're kind of falling short of. And to help others, I think I told them to stay curious, stay creative, because with AI, they need prompts. And the more creative and the more, imaginative you are with the prompts, the greater the results. So, yeah.
Right, and I think when we were prepping, we talked even about Nigel Payne, who we all miss here today.
Yeah.
But he had the book Big Data, and that was even one of the resources. At the end of this, we're definitely going to share some books and resources shared by Tad and Des, so you guys can move forward with some of the conversations we're having. Des, are there any areas you needed to reskill to thrive, and/or what advice would you give professionals considering to pivot into L&D from non-traditional fields?
Yeah, really good questions. So the first one, yeah, loads of areas I've had to continue reskilling and upskilling in. The big ones that come to mind, I suppose, one's more technical, one's more behavioral. So on the technical side, it's just about domain knowledge. So, as a doctor in systems like Ireland and the UK, you're pretty sheltered from the commercial and regulatory aspects of healthcare, to be honest, and that's a really good thing because you can just focus on patients. But moving into the broader life sciences space, I've had to be very conscious about learning about funding models, regulation, and all of the dynamics in a market and a system that lead to the accelerate or inhibit the adoption of new treatments and technologies. What was the second question, Sharon?
The second part is, what would you recommend to professionals considering to pivot in? Because that's what we really want to talk about a lot of, getting more people involved and furthering learning and development as an industry, or whatever it's going to be called, capability building.
Yeah, I think, so speaking as someone still early in my career, I would say to anyone looking to pivot, but especially young professionals, a few things. I think no matter what you've done in your life and in what your education and what you've done in your work, like you have a unique perspective, and that is your greatest asset, even above and beyond your skills. You can use that to connect the dots, in a very unique way. So lean into it, find what that is for you. I think also focus on the why, by which I mean, don't just think of it as pivoting into a new job. Pivot into solving problems that you are really interested in and you really want to solve. So, like I said, we're passionate about innovation in healthcare. I've found learning is one of the most powerful tools to deliver that. And I think, embrace the journey as well, if I'm being honest, again, to young professionals. When I was very early in my career, I landed what was literally my dream job at the health tech company that I had dreamed of working at since I was in medical school. And, developing the digital and AI solutions that I had been so excited about. It was an amazing experience, and I learned so much there. But the reality was, within a year of me joining, that company went from boom to bust, laid off hundreds of people, including myself. And, at the time I was devastated, felt like a big failure. But ultimately, I am, I'm glad it happened, because it set me on the course to the work I'm doing now. So it's not always easy in the moment, but I would say to any young professionals, embrace that uncertainty.
I'm going to challenge that. Not even young professionals. I didn't even know that. We didn't even talk about that in our prep. Embracing the journey for everyone. It is tough out there, and I'm really surprised to hear that. That's amazing. That's such good recommendations. Tad, what assumptions about learning design or talent development do you believe need to be rethought? And this was one of the funnest things of prepping for this, was just getting these out of the box ideas and ways of rethinking the industry. What's your thoughts on that?
There's a few points that I can raise with this. One of the big ones is avoid misconceptions around one size fits all. A lot of people try to kind of cut corners and go for the cheapest one, or the one that suits most of the learners, I say. But to be inclusive and to be engaging, you have to be appealing to everyone. Another thing is not just thinking of learning as, you're learning a concept or you're learning a subject, is changing behavior. I could tell a funny story about behavior, where I was in a company and they struggled along a lot with banter. So a lot of people may see that as kind of a touchy subject. But there was a situation that happened where we had to go in and investigate, like, what's going on, what's happening, why is everybody having a problem with the banter that's flying around? And then there was one situation where we went to go make a cup of tea, and then we went to the mug cupboard, and we seen a mug, it says, "I love boobs" in it. And we were thinking, this is not really appropriate to have in the office. And then we kind of thought, we wouldn't have known this unless we go out and then speak to these people and see the kind of behaviors that are there. And it was very reaffirming to think, like, okay, maybe it's not just learning about stuff with online learning, it's actually going in and changing the behavior and changing the ethics that are around that kind of thing. So that's...
How did it end? Does anyone else want to know? To that mug?
So we found out that e-learning wasn't the answer, but face-to-face training. So we developed like a board game, and it was quite funny because in the board game we had like a little mug and said, "Oh, can you find something inappropriate in this board game?" And they found that mug.
I love that.
So yeah,
that's great. That's really cool. That's excellent. All right, I'm going to take a second, because if any of you are like me, you're kind of itching to chat to the person next to you and just explain your thoughts maybe of engaging subject matter expertise or rethinking and reinventing. Although AI wasn't used in that solution, the concept is there that you have to start thinking differently. So I'm going to give you, if you could talk to the person next to you. I know some people don't hate this, but you're probably, it's 10 something. You want to chat with somebody, take a moment, turn to the person next to you, and just share with them how you're integrating subject matter expertise and or rethinking your role and how you can move things a little bit further. All right, we are going to move forward with our next question, folks, and the next question can come from you. If you can all jump into Slido, those that have questions. As we continue on, I'll be asking questions, but take your time, put in questions. Louise is going to feed us any questions as she receives them through Slido, so we won't have to stop and wait. But that's my favorite part of a conference, is talking and speaking to anyone that knows me knows that. It's really nice to reflect and practice what we preach reflection on what you're hearing from these amazing 30 under 30s and maybe even beyond really soon, right? One just turned 30, I think he said. So we're going to go on with our next question. And then as you had these conversations, feel free and comfortable to go on Slido and ask questions, and we'll feed those up here towards the next few minutes. Tad, how are you reinventing learning experiences to meet the needs of diverse Gen Z, the incoming Gen Alphas, and we even, of course, I mentioned Gen X, all the different variations of generations. Share with us your thoughts on that.
I think everybody knows about AI. I like to compare it to the technological jump as like CD-ROMs. That was a big jump in tech, and AI is the same way. But we're forgetting that Gen Z and Gen Alpha consume a lot of content on a daily basis. They're constantly connected, and to get them to learn something, you have to follow the same type of suit. So they like learning that's purposeful. If you don't tell them, oh, you're going to gain the X, Y, Z from this learning, they're not going to be interested. And it's also about UI, UX, so that's the user interface and user experience. So a lot of people hear about learner experience rather than, just e-learning. It's an experience. You need to build something around it so that they're enjoying it, so that they're finding that it's actually, paying something to them, like they're getting something from it. I think that's the way to tackle the kind of Gen Z, Gen Alpha gap, where it's like you're creating content in ways that they're already consuming content.
That's great. My Gen Zs at home said, if you're not earning or learning, you need to get out. I could not have been so proud that they used the word learning. I was like, wow. But it's true. I think it's great. They state that Gen Zs don't talk with their mouth, they talk with their feet, they walk. They're not going to stick around. So I think it's really important to kind of address that, and that's kind of unique to that generation as well. Des, many people feel there's a disconnect between formal education and the skills needed in the modern workplace. How did your formal education prepare you for the real-world demands of your career, and what did you have to learn on the job?
Yeah, good question. Honestly, I think it's a mixture. I would say I think my education gave me a good head start in lots of areas, but there's just so much of what really matters that you can only learn on the job, no matter what field you're in, I think, obviously, I studied medicine. There's a lot of learning from textbooks, but actually, in a medical course, you're sent out on the wards very early on for years from the start in a kind of safe, protected way, and so you are, from a very early stage, you're interacting with patients and vulnerable people and families and complex situations, and actually that's that kind of testing ground where you develop all those soft skills, that communication, the empathy, the resilience that you need in what really can be a high stakes environment. So I think, again, reflecting on my own experience, I can only say that education can bridge that gap by integrating as much real world, hands-on, real life experience as possible into courses and degrees. Yeah,
it's huge. There's only a number of universities in the States that actually put a whole year of that in. So it's just a new way of rethinking it. Now I'm hearing from Louise. We have a few questions.
Yeah, we have, let's go. Do you want to go with a question for Taddy?
Sure.
So we have, okay, this is a good one. What do you think the impact of AI will be on your job as a designer? I think you might have answered that at the start.
Yeah, a lot of instructional designers are scared of AI because you can basically go into AI and make me a course. But again, it loses that personal touch. And one thing I've found is that humans like talking to other humans. And I think if we keep building on that, my job is never going to go. And I see AI as a tool and almost an assistant, because to make AI successful, you need the prompts. And for the prompts, you need a person. So, yeah.
Right, and I'm thinking back to the story you just shared. You could not have approached the whole mug situation without humiliating or making both sides of the offense feeling a little offended. So I think that's intriguing. Utilizing the technology in order to enable the human engagement is really amazing.
We have one for Des as well, if you want to give it a lash. So, Des, we have, as a medical professional, how do you balance data protection and patient privacy with innovation in AI?
That's a huge question. I'm not a data. One of my colleagues is one of the leading cybersecurity in healthcare experts in the world, like probably top 5. So I wish she were here to answer that question.
Phone a friend.
Look, yeah, but I'm not. Look, it comes back to that question of balancing regulation and innovation, doesn't it? Like I said it, in healthcare and other high compliance industries, like we have to be careful. Data protection, particularly in healthcare, is so important. We can't compromise that. That's why we have, GDPR, HIPAA, specific things like that in place. So I would have to think about that a bit more to give it probably a more thoughtful answer. But
we can come back to you.
Yeah, I wonder, at the end you'll hear, we're going to be putting some of the resources that the gentleman mentioned. I think in that maybe we'll have you get in touch with your contact there, your colleague, and maybe put that as a follow-up, which will be cool. So
Absolutely.
You'll just have to look at the agenda again when you get home, and we're going to have things added to it. Or email is even better. Before we jump into the next question that I'm going to do for the both of you, one of the favorite topics that you shared, Tad, in our preparation was the WCAG in regard to being inclusive. And I had a call on Friday, and I totally utilized it. We talked about it last night at the reception. I did not give Tad any credit on it, but it was for our conversation to have an understanding of what the I'll let you explain what WCAG means. I'm sure many know about it, but the way that you shared the experience and the need for it blew me away and made me rethink it so much that it came up in a conversation where I was asked about accessibility, and not for learning, but for events and marketing and things like that, which the guidelines are still equally as effective. So do you want to share a little bit about that?
I'll just go into layman terms. I won't go too technical about it, but it's basically a guideline to ensure that every piece of online content is suitable and accessible to everyone. I was told this in a talk a couple months ago, that once you include people with learning disabilities and learning difficulties in whatever you're creating, it's already a big plus for everybody else, because they might not even understand, or they might not even be aware of the difficulties that they might have. So when you design or develop things with that in mind, you're already reaching a wider audience, and you're already helping a lot more people than you'll ever think about. So whenever I implore people, whenever you're thinking to create something or put something online, whether it's on a screen, whether it's on a phone, whether it's on an iPad, think about how it's going to be perceived, and think about, is it going to touch people with different disabilities or different abilities to what you have?
Right. We discussed neurodiversity, and I'm partially colorblind and didn't know it till I was in my 20s. Because I thought it looked whatever color it was looking to me. I see orange that you guys see is pink, and it was the 80s, so I look like I just fit in. But you don't know what you don't know, right? And it was really intriguing. So WCAG, if you don't know, is Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. And we'll probably put a little information on that, because I'm constantly intrigued by the impact that can make. For both of you, and we'll start with Des in response to this, what practices or mindsets do you believe are essential for any professional to stay in a state of, most importantly, reinvention?
Yeah, great question. I think for any of us, all of us who want to make sure we keep growing, it comes down to a few core mindsets. The big one, which has been mentioned, I think, is curiosity, right? So curiosity it's the engine for all learning. And I think once you're constantly continue asking questions, trying to find new ways to solve problems, even the most wicked problems, I think that'll take you a lot of the way. I was in the airport yesterday. I had some travel difficulties, so I had some time to kill waiting on my flight, and I went in to grab some food in Itsu. Other restaurants are available, obviously, and they gave me a fortune cookie as a little sort of treat, and the fortune cookie said, what does it say? It said, wisdom starts with wonder, never stop questioning. And I'd attribute it to Socrates. So, don't take it from me, take it from the big guy.
Thanks, Cookie.
Yeah, and Tade mentioned it, and John mentioned it earlier. So, John, Tade, Socrates, all wiser men than me. But I think curiosity is the big one. Apart from that, I would say lean into discomfort. We all know intuitively if we're not on the edge of our comfort zone and being pushed, if you're not learning or earning, it's time for a change, right? And the final one I would say particularly is about learning at the intersection between disciplines. I think no matter what field you're in, the most interesting, exciting, and valuable work is happening at the intersection between different fields where different perspectives and ideas are combining. And that's what I think is so amazing about L&D and education in general. In learning, you get to exposed to all these different business functions in the organization, all these different SMEs, subject matter experts, and you get to be the connector between all those islands across an organization. Connecting those perspectives is so valuable. So that's why L&D and HR can really be the driver of positive change and impact in an organization.
Does anyone else feel as rejuvenated? I've never felt more refreshed in an industry I've been in so long. Tad, do you want me to restate the question?
Yeah, if you can restate.
What practices or mindsets do you believe are essential for any professional to stay in a state of reinvention? And I love that term, reinvention. It initially brought me back to Madonna, but many people are chameleons. So
I would say probably the biggest one is being self-aware. I touched on before finding out that I'm not really good at handling large amounts of data. And that didn't come about until I kind of looked inwards and was like, oh, maybe I need to upskill myself. So maybe looking inwards so that you can, be the best you can be. It sounds a bit cliche, but yeah, looking inwards and asking why. Why do you want to do this? Or why do you want to be here? Or why do you want to go into that next role? And yeah, being purposeful as well. I think that's a great mindset.
Perfect. Yeah. Before we go into their final words of advice, any other questions?
We've a question for Tade. It might be kind of interesting considering some of the sessions later. How do you account for waning attention spans, particularly in the age of TikTok?
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. Because I can already feel my attention span leaving when I'm focusing on something for 5 or 10 minutes. So I find that making it engaging, so making it fun, so try to think outside of the box, make a game, make a VR interaction, or find out what it is the learner likes, and then tailoring the learning around that. So I remember when I was working with a few children with autism, and they found it very hard to study maths, and they really liked Simpsons. So what I did is, obviously, copyright infringement, all that kind of stuff. But what I did is I created a presentation with Simpsons graphics, got Bart writing on the board, and they actually paid attention to it, and it was really rewarding seeing my work being obviously experienced, but also to see that, wow, there's actually a connection between what kids are interested in and what they're wanting to learn. So yeah, that's how I tackle it.
That gave me chills. That's really cool. I do love The Simpsons too. Anything else before we go to the final wrap-up?
Well, actually, there was one that kind of related to what Tade was talking about there. So it said, how do you pitch a learning solution like a board game, and in brackets, love that, has an unusual solution to a learning gap? How did stakeholders react?
There was a bit of friction with it. So what we done was we made a prototype off the back of our selves, and we tested that out, and they seen the value in that immediately. I think when you are pitching something, it's important to think about the end product or the end value. So once you have that value, it's going to be obvious that people are going to learn about banter in a safe and great way, and it's going to improve the work ethic. People are going to buy into that. So I think it's about communicating the value successfully to your stakeholders. Yeah.
And having courage.
Yeah.
I mean, I know we said empathy and all the others, but it's difficult out there. I love the IKEA case study that we had earlier. How can you avoid redundancies? People are scared in their jobs, and you're expected to go in and tell them to let free and to build and grow. So I think courage is a big mindset in regard to in the world of AI. I'd like to get one piece of advice that you'd like to leave with the attendees too, and then after that, we're going to go up to some of the resources and things that you guys want to leave fresh in the minds of the folks. But if you had one final word, it's like you're not going off an edge, but I'd rather like one piece of advice that you might want to share with the audience. We'll start with you, Des.
Yeah, I'll just reiterate it. No matter what you've done in your work and your life, you have a unique perspective that's completely yours, so do lean into it and use it to connect the dots in ways that nobody else can, because that's where you'll make your biggest contribution.
Love that. What about you, Tad?
I would say stay curious, stay creative, as well as if you are creating any content, be empathetic, make it with humans in mind, make everything human-centered. And that way, it's going to be amazing. That's what I would say.
It's kind of neat, this change from in the past years doing this to being employee-centered, learner-centered. But both of you gave this element of human. Maybe because you saved lives at one point, but the human-centered, and you impacted lives, the lives of not just adults, but working with children led you to this way. If you had your favorite book, before I do that, is there any other questions there?
No, the rest of them are too hard.
We need a lot of phone a friend. Maybe we'll get those later and see what we can.
You can ask me in person. We'll see.
But what book, online resource or thing that you would recommend, Des, for people to kind of go to, and we'll be having those listed. And why would you want to use those? Like, feel free to expand on it.
Yeah, so a couple of books that just relate to things I touched on. There's a book called Deep Medicine by Eric Topol. If anybody wants to know how AI is going to revolutionize healthcare, it's a little bit out of date. I think it's funny that it's out of date. It was published in 2019, but it's pre-COVID and pre the current LLM AI hype cycle. But that book got me very excited, about AI in 2019. And then on the upskilling, some very famous books that have helped me as someone with no formal business training are like the Personal MBA by Josh Kaufman, which is like an encyclopedia for someone, a layperson like me coming into that. And it's an absolute classic to the point of being a cliche, but the book, What They Don't Teach You in Harvard Business School, for me, again, as a young professional going for the first time into a corporate environment, that book, I found it so packed with wisdom. I would recommend it. I'm sure lots of people have already read it, but I would recommend it to anybody.
That's great. And, my surprise was when I said resources. Hey, let's make a list of resources, places you go. The fact that books came up so much, and the fact that Barnes & Noble is coming back and present, it reminds us, although we're going forward, it doesn't mean that we have to drop everything from the past, because here's 30 under 30s mentioning books as great resources. So I think I would have picked movies or something.
Yeah.
But I find that really...
You just have to look at Book Talk.
What
you just have to think of Book Talk. It's kind of sums it up, doesn't it?
There you go. Tad, what are your resources and why? Why did you pick them?
So I've got one book, An Artist's Way. It helps me when I'm struggling with creator's block. It kind of relates to reader's block and writer's block. So it kind of talks about calling on the inspiration rather than having inspiration hit you. So that's one book that really helped me when creating e-learning, because sometimes SMEs will come, make this a great e-learning, and I have no idea how to do that. But this book has allowed me to kind of tap into my creativity at will. YouTube videos such as like people like Devlin Peck. He talks a lot about instructional designing and kind of tools to kind of get around, like Addy. I don't know if anybody's heard of Addy. There's another book from a guy that I met at the Learning Tech event, Will Thalheimer.
Oh, Thalheimer.
Yeah. A CEO's guide to training, e-learning and work. That book's really rewarding because it talked about e-learning and training, it's not enough. You need to go in and make a change with the behaviors and stuff
He's
like
going to be so excited because I
Yeah.
just saw him over the summer. They had a meetup in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and wow, that's amazing. That's great that you brought that up. We have a couple of minutes, so don't kill me. Is there anyone that has a burning question out there and wants to go old school and just raise it? Elliot, I should have known. Elliot Macy, a mentor of mine, by the way.
A quick question and give me a quick answer.
Oh, man.
What's something that with AI and innovation you've stopped doing? Okay, what's something that has yielded for you? I'm not doing that, or I'm pausing doing that.
Do you want to go? I could talk on one. Image creation. I find it a bit offsetting when it creates like human imagery. It might be my own, ethos, but when I'm creating images for my online learning, I've stopped going into e-learning to create, because I don't know where it gets those faces from, or I don't know, stuff like that. So that's something I've stopped.
That's funny because I got one, someone did it, I wrote an article, and I was like, all right, maybe I am 23. Go ahead, leave it up there. But you're right, yeah.
Yeah, for me, it's probably search. So, if I'm trying to do like some quick and dirty research or getting started on like a literature review, instead of going on to a database and searching for all the kind of literature on this disease or whatever it is, it's using LLMs to quickly pull those things. Now, disclaimer, you can't trust LLMs for fact generation. It has to be search. You have to go and read everything and verify everything. But it's changed the way I search. So I don't use Google and things like that in the same way at all.
That's shocking because you weren't able to make it because you were delayed. We had that exact conversation, and Egla, yes, she brought up, and Vincent, who was at our table, that it used to be just Google it, when the noun became a verb. And then his wife was saying, well, just chat GBT it. And we had that conversation about accuracy. And then it was perplexity that I think Egla brought up. So rethinking that when it goes from a noun to a verb, something has really happened in regard to all of that. Did you want to respond to any of it, Elliot? Or?
Good answer.
Great answers, yeah. Thank you. I couldn't end it one more.
Yeah, I just think this would be really interesting for people in the room. The question is from Arjun, who is actually going to be on the event partners section up in the mezzanine. So Arjun says, as sixth year, I'm having problems as well. As a sixth year student myself, what's one unique soft skill that will support us Gen Z and Gen Alphas in tomorrow's rapidly changing world, moving world?
For me, communication is the meta skill of meta skills. I think when you have more conversations with more people all the time, I know we're talking about resources and books, but for every book you read, have 10 or 100 conversations. People are the greatest resource. And the more you engage and put yourself out there in front of people, it'll take you so far, and you'll hone those communication skills, which just then apply in everything you do.
Can I raise a point on that as well? With Gen Z and Gen Alpha, a lot of people forget that a lot of their development years was in lockdown. So they've missed out a huge part of their lives building on these soft skills. So maybe one of the big ones is, like how you said before, resilience. So they've lost that kind of motivation or that drive to achieve things. So maybe the soft skill is resilience and, as you said, communication, because you've missed out so many years communicating with your peers. So yeah.
Yeah, I'd even add grit.
Yeah.
It's hit that. This time's up. This has been a gift from Learnovate Center for allowing me to be able to meet and speak with such wonderful folks and learn so much from tomorrow's talent today.
Yeah.
So thank you all very much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.